Life was supposed to be simple for me. A stable job, a loving wife, and a couple of wonderful kids. But things don't always go as planned. My name's Daniel, and I've been married to Emma for about 15 years. We live in a cozy house in the suburbs, where life had a predictable, comforting rhythm. Emma worked part-time at a local boutique while I ran my own small business. We have 2 kids, Sam and Lily, 12 and 10, who are the light of my life. A couple of months ago, I started feeling unwell. It began with stomach aches, which I brushed off as stress or something I ate. But as the weeks passed, the pain intensified. I finally went to see a doctor, thinking it was something minor. After a series of tests and a lot of waiting, I got the news. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The words hit me like a freight train. The doctor talked about timelines and treatment options, but all I could think about was how to break this news to my family. That day, I decided to head home early. I wanted to tell Emma in person, to hold her and feel her support. As I drove home, my mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. How would the kids react? How much time did I really have left? When I pulled into the driveway, something felt off. Emma's car was there, but the house seemed too quiet. I walked in, expecting to find her in the kitchen or watching TV. Instead, I heard muffled voices coming from the living room. Confused, I stopped in the hallway and glanced at the family pictures lining the wall. Emma's laughter echoed softly, followed by a man's voice. My heart pounded as I moved closer, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. I peeked into the living room, and my world shattered. Emma was on the couch, entangled with our business partner, Mark. They were laughing and whispering, completely oblivious to my presence. I stood there frozen as the reality of their betrayal sank in. My first instinct was to storm in and confront them, but something held me back. Instead, I backed away quietly and slipped out of the house. I drove aimlessly, my mind a whirl of anger, pain, and disbelief. How long had this been going on? Why Mark of all people? The betrayal cut deep, but I needed to think clearly, to plan my next steps. That night, I returned home after Emma had gone to bed. I couldn't face her, not yet. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events over and over. The next morning, I acted as if everything was normal. I couldn't let her know I had discovered their affair, not until I had a plan. I decided to reach out to my lawyer, Stephen, to review my will and the prenup Emma and I had signed before our marriage. Stephen was sympathetic, offering both legal advice and a listening ear. He promised to ensure my assets were protected and suggested I start gathering evidence of the affair. I felt a strange sense of calm, knowing I had someone on my side. Over the next few weeks, I installed a few discreet cameras around the house, focusing on the living room and our bedroom. Emma continued her charade, acting like the perfect wife while I played along, masking my pain with forced smiles and casual conversations. I spent more time with Sam and Lily, cherishing every moment and creating memories I hoped would last a lifetime. As I reviewed the footage, the extent of Emma's betrayal became painfully clear. She and Mark met frequently, using our home as their private getaway. The anger simmered within me, but I knew I had to stay composed. I couldn't let my emotions derail my plans. I decided to plan one final holiday with my family. It was important to me that Sam and Lily had one last joyful memory before everything fell apart. We spent a week in a cozy cabin by the lake, fishing, hiking, and roasting marshmallows by the fire. Emma played her part perfectly, and for a moment, it almost felt like old times. But the knowledge of her betrayal was a constant shadow, a reminder that our days of pretending were numbered. After the holidays, I planned the confrontation. I wanted it to be public, to strip away any pretense and lay bare the truth. There was a small, intimate restaurant we frequented, a place filled with memories of birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet dinners. I made a reservation for a Friday night, knowing it would be busy enough to have witnesses, but still private enough for a serious conversation. As the day approached, I prepared myself mentally for the storm that was to unfold. I knew it would be messy and painful, but it was necessary. It was time for Emma to face the consequences of her actions and for me to reclaim the dignity she had tried to strip away. The days leading up to the confrontation were a blur of nerves and planning. I continued to gather evidence, reviewing the camera footage, and compiling everything I needed to make my case airtight. My lawyer, Stephen, was a constant source of support, guiding me through the legal steps and reassuring me that I was doing the right thing. One evening, while Emma was out running errands, I decided to delve deeper into her digital life. I had already seen enough from the hidden cameras, but I needed more concrete evidence to ensure my legal protection. I accessed her laptop and phone, meticulously searching through emails, messages, and call logs. What I found was a treasure trove of deceit. There were countless messages between Emma and Mark, detailing their rendezvous and making a mockery of our marriage vows. It was a painful process, but it solidified my resolve. The night before the confrontation, I stayed up late, going over every detail of my plan. I reviewed the evidence, printed out key messages, and even rehearsed what I would say. I wanted to be calm and composed, to maintain control of the situation. My children deserved that much. Friday arrived, and the air was thick with anticipation. I went through the motions of the day, trying to act as normally as possible. Emma seemed oblivious, chatting cheerfully about her plans for the weekend. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. Despite everything, part of me still loved her. But the betrayal was too deep, too painful to ignore. That evening, we arrived at the restaurant. It was bustling with the usual Friday night crowd, the air filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. We were shown to our usual table, a cozy corner spot with a view of the garden. As we settled in, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Dinner began pleasantly enough, with small talk and shared appetizers. Emma seemed relaxed, enjoying the ambience. Little did she know, this was the calm before the storm. As we finished our main courses, I decided it was time. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder containing the evidence. "Emma," I began, my voice steady but firm. "We need to talk." She looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. "What is it, Daniel?" I placed the folder on the table and slid it towards her. "Open it," I said. She hesitated, glancing around the room. "Daniel, what is this?" "Just open it," I repeated, my tone leaving no room for argument. With a wary look, she opened the folder and began to flip through the pages. Her face paled as she realized what she was looking at: messages, photos, and transcripts of her calls with Mark. She looked up at me, her eyes wide with shock and fear. "Daniel, Save it," I interrupted. "I've seen enough. I know everything." The restaurant seemed to fall silent around us, the ambient noise fading into the background. Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she looked around as if seeking an escape. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "How long have you been betraying me?" She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "It's not what you think," she began, but I cut her off. "Not what I think?" "Emma, I've seen the messages, the photos. I've watched you with him, in our home. How could you do this to us, to our family?" Tears streamed down her face, and she reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "Please, Daniel, let me explain," she pleaded. "Explain what?" I snapped. "That you've been sleeping with my business partner? That you've been lying to me for months, maybe years? There's nothing to explain, Emma. You've destroyed our marriage, our family." Her sobs grew louder, attracting the attention of nearby diners. I took a deep breath, trying to maintain my composure. "I'm filing for divorce," I said quietly, "and I'm going to make sure you get as little as possible. Our children deserve better than this." Emma's face crumpled, and she buried her face in her hands. "Daniel, please," she sobbed. "I love you. I was lonely, and it just happened. I never meant to hurt you." "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I repeated, incredulous. "Emma, you knew exactly what you were doing. You made a choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." With that, I stood up, leaving her weeping at the table. As I walked out of the restaurant, I felt a mixture of anger, relief, and profound sadness. The confrontation was over, but the journey was just beginning. The aftermath of the confrontation was a whirlwind of emotions and legal maneuvers. I moved into a small apartment nearby, wanting to stay close to Sam and Lily. The children were understandably confused and upset, but I tried to reassure them that everything would be okay. They were my top priority, and I would do everything in my power to protect them. Emma tried to reach out several times, begging for forgiveness, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Her betrayal was too deep, the wounds too fresh. Instead, I focused on securing my assets and preparing for the legal battle ahead. Stephen was a godsend during this time, guiding me through the process and ensuring I was protected. In the midst of the chaos, I couldn't ignore the anger simmering inside me. I wanted revenge, Not just on Emma, but on Mark as well. He had been a friend, a trusted business partner, and he had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The thought of them together made my blood boil, and I knew I needed to take action. I began by digging into Mark's business dealings. As a partner, I had access to all our financial records, and I spent countless nights poring over them. It didn't take long to find discrepancies, small at first, but enough to raise suspicion. I enlisted the help of a forensic accountant, and together we uncovered a web of financial misconduct. Mark had been embezzling funds, siphoning money from our company into his personal accounts. Armed with this evidence, I went to the authorities. Mark was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The business we had built together crumbled, but I felt a grim satisfaction knowing that he would pay for his actions. As for Emma, I made sure she felt the full weight of her betrayal. I filed for divorce, citing adultery, and sought full custody of our children. I provided the court with the evidence I had gathered, including the camera footage and the messages between her and Mark. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me primary custody of Sam and Lily and a significant portion of our assets. Emma was devastated, but I couldn't bring myself to feel any sympathy. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Our interactions became strictly about the children, and I kept her at arm's length, refusing to let her back into my life. The divorce was finalized, and I felt a sense of closure. The journey had been long and painful, but I had come out the other side stronger. My focus now was on rebuilding my life and providing a stable, loving environment for my children. The months following the divorce were a time of healing and reflection. I poured my energy into my children, making sure they felt loved and secure. We moved into a new house, one that held no memories of the past, and started to build a new life together. Sam and Lily adapted quickly, their resilience a constant source of inspiration. We created new routines, new traditions, and slowly but surely, the wounds began to heal. I took up hobbies I had long neglected, painting, hiking, and even started a small garden in our backyard. Each day was a step towards reclaiming my happiness and finding peace. I also reconnected with old friends and made new ones. My social circle expanded, and I found comfort in the support of those around me. I even started dating again, cautiously at first, but gradually opening my heart to the possibility of love. Through it all, I remained focused on my health. The diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer was a constant shadow, but I refused to let it define me. I continued treatment, embracing each day with gratitude and determination. My children needed me, and I was determined to be there for them as long as possible. As time passed, I began to see the affair as a turning point, a painful, devastating experience that ultimately led to growth and self-discovery. I had learned to value myself, to set boundaries, and to prioritize my well-being and that of my children. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Sam and Lily laughing and sharing stories about their day, I felt a profound sense of contentment. The past no longer held me captive, and the future, though uncertain, was filled with promise. Life had thrown me a curveball, but I had found the strength to catch it and throw it back. Emma's betrayal had shattered my world, but it had also set me free. Free to rediscover who I was, to rebuild my life on my terms, and to create a future filled with love and hope. And so, as the sun set on another day, I looked at my children and smiled. We had been through hell and back, but we had come out of the other side stronger, closer, and ready to face whatever life had in store. In the end, it wasn't just about surviving the storm, it was about learning to dance in the rain. And dance we did, together, as a family, united by love and the unbreakable bond we shared.